Big day I have on tap for you. My bullet points for today. The travel ban. A debate is heard before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals out in California. A lot of it dialed in, literally. Betsy DeVos, there's a vote held. We'll tell you about that. Elizabeth Warren, Liawatha, as some call her, has been silenced in the Senate. Seriously, they used Senate rules to say, we're not interested in hearing you talk for a while. So they sat her down. And Maxine Waters, the congresswoman from California, thinks that Vladimir Putin is invading Korea. Yeah, I can't make this up. Yes, it's too good. The show is stacked and packed for you today. You got Todd Wood, Julie Gunlock, Steve Hayes from Fair Tax, Congressman John Moolenaar, Matt Briggs talking about the rigging of numbers when it comes to science and climate. And Scottie, Nell, Hughes will join us as well. I mean, it's a big day. So shake it off. Let's get it done. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it on this Wednesday. It is the 8th of February. Glad to have you with us today for the program. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. I'm glad you're here because there's a lot to cover today, and you'll be the smartest kid at school when you get there if you listen to the program. 3 judges on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit heard arguments on whether to grant an emergency stay of a district judge's issuance of a temporary restraining order blocking President Trump's executive order EO 13769, the travel ban from 7 nations, the nations that were highlighted by the previous administration, by Barack Obama's administration, for having a high likelihood of terrorists coming through. The oral arguments, I'm going to guess that this court is going to break with precedent. This court is going to break with the idea that the president has the ability to block anyone coming here for the safety of this nation. It is dangerous territory to head into. Extremely dangerous territory for this nation to head into for the courts, but I believe that's what's going to happen. Right now, the arguments have been made. We will see what happens from here. And, of course, if it happens sometime during the program, if the ruling comes out, we'll let you know. The Senate on Tuesday did confirm Betsy DeVos to lead the Department of Education after a long, hard fight. In fact, it came down to a historic moment. Vice President Mike Pence cast the deciding vote on DeVos, breaking the 50-50 tie, the first vice president to ever cast a decisive vote on a cabinet nominee. Pence arrived at the Capitol around 11:30 yesterday, waited in the wings until the vote was tied at 50-50 to take over the presiding chair and cast his vote. The vice president, a former member of Congress, chatted with GOP senators on the floor after the vote and shook hands with Senator Ted Cruz. Pence expected to meet with Senate Republicans during their closed-door weekly policy lunch this week as well. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer later defended Pence, making history by breaking a tie in the cabinet, calling the vote another glaring reminder of the unprecedented obstruction Senate Democrats have engaged in throughout this process. By the way, Chuck Schumer says, even though they failed in their 11th hour plea, they're going to continue. They're going to continue to obstruct with filibusters and 30-hour conversations and so on and so forth. So just get ready for it. The American Federation of Teachers, brokenhearted. Sad day for children, they say. Actually, schools of choice are the best chance many children have. School of choice is the best chance many children have because it'll get them out of failing schools. And Michigan has basically put choice up front now. It's long argued by conservatives the best way to improve failing efforts in education nationwide. Now it'll be front and center because that is Betsy DeVos's pet project. And this is coupled with the latest victory for right to work in Missouri. You see, it seems that conservatism despite the full frontal attack daily on places like the national news media, conservative ideas and principles continue to win. The right to work won in Missouri here yesterday. New Governor Eric Greitens signing that into law. New Hampshire next could happen as soon as next week. The DeVos confirmation might be the latest indication that the stranglehold unions once held in many places in America over politics, most notably in places like Michigan, might be waning. The day of the union might be over. We will be watching closely as DeVos takes over directing the nation's schools and see if she is able to deliver some of those ideas of reform, despite the inclination of those on the left to dismiss any new ideas out of hand. We'll see what Betsy DeVos is able to pull off in her new position. All right, so just how bad are things on the left? Well, when they parade out Maxine Waters, the pride of California's 43rd congressional district, you just never know what she's going to say. Maxine Waters, 3 weeks into the Trump administration, is calling for his impeachment. And then she walked it back a little, and then she took some questions from reporters yesterday. Did Maxine Waters. She was there with her hero, Nancy Pelosi, and others. But, you just go ahead. She doesn't remember when one of the presidential candidates couldn't remember about the war on terror and key places. Listen to this answer, and then listen to what Vladimir Putin's up to. It's Maxine Waters. Go.
Or whether he's talking about his relationship to Putin and the Kremlin, and knowing that they have hacked our DCCC and DNC, and knowing that he is responsible for supplying the bombs that killed innocent children and families in Aleppo, and the fact that he is wrapping his arms around Putin while Putin is continuing to advance into Korea. I think that he is leading himself
Korea?
into that kind of
Aleppo?
position where folks will begin to ask, what are we going to do? And the answer is going to be, eventually, we've got to do something about him.
Yeah. In Aleppo, maybe Korea. Good Lord. The people that vote in the 43rd District of California must be proud every time they parade her out. They must be proud every time she comes out. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren, who I heard referred to as Hiawatha here a bit ago, made me chuckle, by the way. Elizabeth Warren has been silenced by the Republican senators. They've had enough of her, and they said they need to formally silence her because she was saying inappropriate things about nominees on the Senate floor. So they took an unusual step, voted Tuesday to formally silence the colleague for impugning a peer. Yeah, she's been holding fort on the Senate floor, trying to block Jeff Sessions, and she went too far. We'll tell you more about that after the break. Hiawatha, how do you like that? 14 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, so Elizabeth Warren silenced, and you thought there was no justice. Come on. Seriously, Senator, sit down. No, nobody cares, all right? Sit down because nobody's interested in what you have to say. Trust me on this one. Here's something, though, that is going to create a great cacophony on the left. Tremendous noise and victimization and so on and so forth. Because Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, a 39-year-old war veteran, has introduced legislation along with David Perdue of Georgia that would cut in half the number of green cards issued in this country each year from 1 million to just 500,000. The net effect is to cut American immigration in half. Cotton paraded around on different news organizations, with the exception of his controversial order suspending the refugee program and travel to the U.S. from 7 majority Muslim countries, Donald Trump largely has focused his immigration policy on calls for a border wall and more immigration agents to stem the flow of undocumented residents. Senator Cotton argues that issues such as illegal entry, border security, and immigration enforcement are just as important, and that the country has a job to do to address the impact of legal immigration on U.S. workers. Not just illegal immigration, but legal immigration, and how it impacts people already living here. Right now, we have a legal immigration system that's not working for the American worker, he said. Blue-collar workers, people working with their hands, on their feet, have seen their wages stagnate for decades with no relief in sight. Senator Cotton was among Trump's earliest and has been one of his most loyal Capitol Hill supporters. He and Purdue's efforts to address legal immigration is a potentially explosive issue among Republicans and Democrats alike, considering the party's pro-business or so-called Chamber of Commerce wing. So this is going to be a big fight. Cotton argues such policies put downward pressure on blue-collar wages. His bill, if signed into law, would cut legal immigration by 40% in the first year, 50% over 10 years. But 40% in the first year alone. Boom. We're taking action to fix some of our shortcomings of our legal immigration system, so said Senator Perdue. Returning to our historically normal levels of legal immigration will help improve the quality of American jobs and American wages. The Reforming American Immigration for Strong Employment, or RAISE Act, would reduce green cards for permanent legal residents by limiting those U.S. citizens can sponsor, ending a U.S. diversity visa lottery for countries that have few American immigrants, and cutting the number of refugees allowed into the United States, period. Of course, the Democrats are already coming out against it. Democrat Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire called the legislation senseless and a job killer. Like they always do. What do you think about all that? What do you think about changing the way we deal with legal immigration? Now, that's something you haven't heard previously. Changing the way we deal with legal immigration is something you haven't heard talked about. But apparently, that's going to be part of the conversation over the next 4 years as well. Meanwhile, in our fight against terrorism, because this is really where it all roots back to, Yemen, the nation of Yemen, has withdrawn permission for U.S. forces to conduct anti-terror ground missions in the country after a deadly commando raid last month that reportedly resulted in civilian casualties. The New York Times, citing unnamed American officials, reporting yesterday that neither the White House nor the Yemenis have publicly announced the suspension. The report said it is unclear if the Yemenis were influenced at all by President Trump's travel ban order. Yemen was included in that, as you know. U.S. Central Command said earlier this month that civilians may have been hit by gunfire from aircraft called in to assist U.S. troops who were engaged in a ferocious firefight January the 29th. And one Navy SEAL was killed there. That is the Navy SEAL that President Trump went to Dover to receive back with his family, unexpected. So Yemen has suspended our ability to conduct raids inside their country. And who allows that anyway? Who allows that anyway? Because, I have a country would allow, yeah, you can come in our country and conduct military raids. Anyhow, let's get back to the problems with the Democrats. Maxine Waters, we've already focused on. She thinks that Vladimir Putin is apparently invading Korea. She believes that the Russians are invading Korea. Well, during that same press conference, Nancy Pelosi apparently thinks that she is battling President Bush. We've seen nothing where I can work with President Bush on, Pelosi said as Maxine Waters' face dropped and she muttered to her colleagues, "I'm disappointed because I thought there might be some interest because of what he said in the campaign. It turned out not to be true, a hoax, and really dangerous to economic stability of America's working families," Pelosi said. Of course, this is the same press conference where Maxine Waters chided President Trump in his reaction to Russia's invasion of Korea. When these are two of your leading voices of the Democratic Party, you might want to look for something different. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is what, 76? She's not quite. I've never thought that she was an impressive political figure, but she's certainly waning in her later years. Maxine Waters she's been out there for a long time. Another Californian that's been out there for a long time, Governor Jerry Brown, who's like 106. His allies vow to fight President Donald Trump tooth and nail over everything. Everything. That's their list, everything. Sanctuary cities, environmental policies, doesn't matter. President Trump fired the latest shot when he threatened to defund programs over California's push to become a sanctuary state. Trump criticized California lawmakers during his Super Bowl interview with Bill O'Reilly. I think it's ridiculous. We will certainly not stand for sanctuary cities, let alone sanctuary states. We will put an end to it, is basically what Trump said. Now Jerry Brown, the 76-year-old hippie, is taking issue with it. So am I, actually, and letting you know about it. 25 after, you're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
From the coast to gold, across the seven seas.
You know, just when you thought there was no justice. Just when you thought there was no justice, they tell Elizabeth Warren to sit down and shut up. And she has to do it. I heard her referred to on morning television as Liawatha, and I think I just about split a seam. My next guest, Todd Wood. Todd, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
You know, I am so glad they made Elizabeth Warren sit down and just, don't speak. You violated the rules. Just sit there and shut up. I just enjoyed it. That's all. What do you think?
Fantastic. Yeah, she's been annoying lately for sure.
Yeah, well, we don't get to hear from her for the rest of Jeff Sessions' confirmation, at least. Thank you, Mitch McConnell, for that little gift to America. Let's talk about North Korea, a problem really perpetuated by Bill Clinton and a deal that he made, not unlike the Iran deal when you look at it standing back from a few steps. And now you've got Iran touching off missiles, but I see that over the last 48 hours, since the Trump administration put sanctions in place and said you're on notice, all of a sudden some missiles started disappearing from launch pads and so forth. They've cleaned up a bunch of stuff in aerial footage that I've seen in the last little bit. Have you seen the same?
Yeah, I saw reports of that. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Just a little bit of leadership can do wonders. So hopefully that'll continue.
Can pull some stuff back. Now, what about this alliance, though, between North Korea? Again, this was this problem in large part created by Bill Clinton when he made a deal that North Korea would never have nuclear weapons. We see how that's gone. And now a similar deal with Iran. But it seems like these two are working together. You've written about it recently. What is this axis?
Well, there's it's I guess it's, I wouldn't say unconfirmed, but it's a lot of this is speculation that Iran is getting their missile technology from North Korea. So, we'll see how that goes over the next few months as they do more tests, if they do more tests. But some of the technology is that they're using, the characteristics are very similar to the technology that North Korea has developed for intercontinental ballistic missiles. So, that's the concern, that North Korea obviously has developed a lot of this so that they can miniaturize a bomb and put it on a long-range missile. And, if they're giving that to Iran, I mean, that's a real problem.
So let me ask you this. You've seen the skirmishes, obviously, the Saudi frigate that was sunk, and some believe that the real target was the American military ship in the neighborhood. Do you really see the real possibility of a shooting war, a hot exchange, a skirmish at a minimum with Iran? We know that they, took American sailors hostage, humiliated them on camera during the Barack Obama administration. I don't think that we will see that today because I don't think Donald Trump will allow his military people, our military people, to be put on their knees and ridiculed. Do you think there's a possibility of a shooting war, a hot war here as all this tension continues?
I think it all depends on Iran. I mean, obviously there's some back channel stuff going on where, Trump has probably actually really put them on notice, saying, we're ready to act if you continue. So, if they want to push this and push Donald Trump and test him, I mean, yeah, we could get into something like we had, 15 years or whenever it was when we were having, conflict in the Gulf, sinking ships, that kind of thing.
Right. So, I mean, my concern, though, is that Iran keeps prodding and poking and feeling around, although the removal of the missiles from the pads seems to be an indication that maybe they're backing up a step or two.
It does. We will see. You know, they're sneaky people, so we'll see if it actually holds. And you know, I think we'll know pretty quickly. Though I think they've said they're going to keep testing, so we'll see. When
you travel and you get out there and do your legwork, oftentimes in Eastern Europe, have you ever traveled to places like Iran or Iraq, Yemen, some of these countries that we've put in this temporary travel ban that's now kind of on hiatus here as they sort it out? But do you ever find yourself concerned for your own safety traveling in those places?
It's always something, you know. I was in outside of Gaza and got rocketed a couple of years ago. That was interesting. So it happens, but you just have to be careful, like anywhere, and know what's going on and be aware of what's happening around you. Just common sense, basically.
Like real rockets, like hot rounds.
Oh yeah, I had. I was basically trying to get close as I could to Gaza without going in it, and this was during the 2014 war. And as I'm there, and this town goes Derot, right on the Gaza border, the Iron Dome warnings started going off, and I happened to be on top of a building, so there's nowhere I could go, so I just ducked below the wall around the building, and yeah, rounds started falling all around me. And luckily I had, unlike Brian Williams, I had an iPhone, so I took video of it.
And unlike Hillary Clinton, you weren't getting like a coffee and a back rub. You actually had things going on around you.
Oh yeah, I mean, one hit about 40 yards from me, and it was quite interesting.
Man, that's crazy. I guess my question, I mean, you've traveled more than a lot of the folks we have on this program to places that are volatile, I will say. Is Iran one of the places you think is most likely to have a problem, or are you looking at places like Crimea or the Ukraine? Where do you think the most likely problem is to occur for Donald Trump and foreign policy first?
I think there's going to be a deal with Russia. I think it's already being worked. Trump is much too, I don't want to say smug, but competent in his discussions about that. I think that's going to be resolved to some type of satisfaction. But I do believe that North Korea, actually I think China is probably the big, elephant in the room. I mean, they're pushing, they're not going to back off. They have a much more powerful military now, and we've shrunk our Navy to the point where they have, gotten more uppity, if you will, and I think that they will continue to push there.
And just so we're clear, everybody, I know I played the clip for you earlier. Russia is annexed Crimea, not Korea, as Maxine Waters pointed out to us. She says, it's not Korea, boys and girls, it's Crimea. They're a long way apart. The Democrats
really
must be proud.
Just watch that video over and over, and this person has power, and her and
Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, the Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters together, the deadly duo. Good Lord. Didn't Putin invade Korea? Yeah, Maxine, you got it. Check your medication.
Yeah, some people say it was a mistake. She meant Crimea. No, she was searching for the word. She was just making crap up. It was on the fly.
Exactly. Aleppo, what's that? Anyhow, Todd Wood, always a pleasure. Thanks for the laugh. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care, Steve. Ciao.
Yeah, Todd Wood, everybody. We'll be back in a minute.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it in
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
My homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it is 6 after on this Wednesday. It is the 8th of February. Glad you're with us today. I appreciate your support. This hour of the program brought to you in part by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy. Know your own power. All right, 3 federal judges now have the case of the temporary travel ban on immigrants and refugees from 7 predominantly Muslim nations. They are from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the most liberal appeals court in America. The Justice Department's lawyer argued in a hearing on Tuesday that Mr. Trump's national security judgment should not be questioned, and in fact, he is right under the 1952 law. Presidents have a wide berth when it comes to deciding who can come here and if they can stop somebody from coming here. President Trump spoke on the order yesterday. It's clip 11, Trump speaking about the court and what he's waiting on, what could happen next. Clip 11, President Trump.
We're going to take it through the system. It's very important. It's very important for the country, regardless of me or whoever succeeds at a later date. I mean, we have to have security in our country. We have to have the ability. When you take some place like Syria, or you take all of the different people pouring around. And if you remember, ISIS said, we are going to infiltrate the United States and other countries through the migration. And then we're not allowed to be tough on the people coming in. Explain that one. So we'll see what happens. We have a big court case. We're well represented. And we're going to see what happens.
Is it going to go to the Supreme Court, you think?
Good. And we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't have to. It's common sense. You know, some things are law, and I'm all in favor of that. And some things are common sense. This is common sense.
If we're going to be attacked from some place and it's been identified as an area of concern, it's common sense to figure out how to vet them. It's not a permanent ban. It's a temporary pause to try to figure out how to make sure that our systems are working properly, to make sure that we're keeping America safe. And refugees went to places like the Bataclan in Paris. Refugees attacked Nice, France, and the list goes on. The refugee and immigration influx into different countries has been used as a Trojan horse, if you will, to allow those that want to commit incredible carnage and damage have made their way in. If you didn't think there was justice, there is now. Senator Elizabeth Warren was formally silenced by her Republican colleagues during a debate on Mr. Trump's nominee for Attorney General, Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. His confirmation expected to come later today. Miss Warren reading from a letter penned in 1986 by Coretta Scott King that criticized Jeff Sessions' record on civil rights, despite the fact that he had crushed the Ku Klux Klan in Alabama, despite the fact that the head of the Klan, under Jeff Sessions' direction, had received the death penalty, something that he followed through on, by the way. Republicans said Miss Warren violated a rule about demeaning a sitting senator. She later read the letter in full on Facebook, and isn't that exciting? And if you want to get the kids around, you can have story time with Liawatha. Also on Tuesday, Vice President Mike Pence broke a 50-50 tie to confirm Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary. Yeah, I get it. I heard that earlier. It makes you chuckle. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Yemen will no longer be allowing the United States to run special operations ground missions against terrorism suspects amid outrage over civilian casualties in a raid last month. That, according to unnamed American officials. The move comes as the Trump administration weighs whether or not to designate, now listen to this, designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. The Egyptian group has millions of followers and renounced violence decades ago, but has been linked to terrorism, has been linked to the bloodshed in places like Egypt. Separately, another big struggle beginning as the Defense Department considering renting space in Trump Tower in New York to support the day-to-day operations of the administration. And like I said, a big win for Betsy DeVos yesterday. She makes her way through a historic vote by Mike Pence, the vice president, breaking a 50-50 tie. And it puts schools of choice up front because that is Betsy DeVos's pet cause, if you will, schools of choice, which are, you know, I don't care who you listen to, anybody of logic. Go back and listen to the Milton Friedman tapes done in the 1970s about schools of choice and how they can help poor communities, specifically black communities, because schools of choice would give parents the one mechanism they have to get out, or vouchers, a chance to spend money on schools to get to better schools for their children, to break the cycle of poverty and dependence. That's what schools of choice are about. Not for me. I had a decent public school as far as such things go. But a lot of them are not decent. And the way to improve places in schooling is going to be schools of choice and voucher systems. And the Democrats will go crazy because it's not what the unions want. Well, it's what the American people want. It's what our children need. But the Democrats are too fixated on Vladimir Putin invaded Korea. What? Well, that's what Maxine Waters said, that the pride of California's 43rd Congressional District, confused and lost again on the podium, but talking about impeaching Donald Trump, doesn't know what's going on in Syria particularly, doesn't know what Russia's up to exactly. In fact, it's so embarrassing I have to play it for you. Here's Maxine Waters from California. Go.
Or whether he's talking about his relationship to Putin and the Kremlin, and knowing that they have hacked our DCCC and DNC, and knowing that he is responsible for supplying the bombs that killed innocent children and families in Aleppo, and the fact that he is wrapping his arms around Putin while Putin is continuing to advance into Korea. I think that he is leading himself into that kind of position where folks will begin to ask, what are we going to do? And the answer is going to be, eventually, we've got to do something about him.
Did you wonder if you took and gave Maxine Waters a map, if she could find Korea or Crimea or Syria on a map? I'm going to guess not. I'm going to guess she can't find it. But she's not the only one that's confused, because during the very same press conference, Nancy Pelosi talked about her battles with the president just 2 weeks into his administration. But which president exactly is Nancy Pelosi talking about? How's her medication doing? Here's Nancy Pelosi talking about the battles with the new administration. Go.
While it's only a couple of weeks since the inauguration, there's complete evidence. We've seen nothing that we can work, but I can work with President Bush on, and I'm disappointed because I thought that there might be some interest because of what he said in the campaign, which turns out to be not true, a hoax, and really dangerous to the economic stability of America's working families. Do you my
President Bush, she's fighting. All right, so Maxine Waters thinks that Russia is invading Korea, and Nancy Pelosi is believing that President Bush is back in the White House. Guys, can we check the medication of these folks? We'll take care of that. Straight ahead, Julie Gunlock on the program. Sit tight. More to come.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Meanwhile, on another planet, Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi convene a secret meeting to fight President Bush and Vladimir Putin's invasion of Korea. Oh, good Lord. These poor people. I feel sorry for them, but, well, not exactly. Julie Gunlock, my next guest here on the program, the next contestant here. Julie, welcome back.
It does feel like a game we're all playing, doesn't it?
Yes, welcome back. Behind door number 3, we have Nancy Pelosi's medicine and Maxine Waters' brain. Oh, wait, they've been mixed together. Good Lord.
I hope those aren't the prizes.
They're both very small. So it is. Good Lord. And Putin's invading Korea. Yeah, that's it. Oh, my God.
That's it. Yeah.
The best tape I've seen. And Nancy Pelosi thinks that George Bush is president. These people are running the Democratic Party.
Too many injections in her face. Things have just gone bad.
Yeah. Botox reached her small but vile brain. All right, good. Julie, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am also finding it quite entertaining to watch the national freak out over Trump. So...
Trump derangement syndrome. I think that really is the best term for it. Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah. I think we're going to see the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals do something unprecedented and say that a president doesn't have control over national security. Which is it's damned frightening, is what it is. But
yeah, everybody's freaking out about Bannon being on the National Security Council, but not freaking out about the clear constitutional crisis we're about to have.
Well, here's something that was put forth, and I want you to consider this. I saw this from one of my very bright people that interacts with me on Facebook. He said, is this going to be the new normal where the president does whatever he does, and then some unaffiliated judge by themselves on the West Coast somewhere puts in an injunction. It goes to the Ninth Circuit, which upholds it. So, in effect, the Ninth Circuit Court becomes the most powerful court in America, superseding the Supreme Court.
Absolutely, which the Ninth Circuit Court is about as lefty as you get. I mean, this is not a balanced court. There are no conservatives in the Ninth
but they
Circuit,
have the ability to, and as long as the court is at 4-4, the Ninth Circuit has the ability to sidestep the Supreme Court altogether because they can just get some activist judge to make a ruling that they uphold, no matter how outrageous it is. This is exactly what occurs when you have a constitutional crisis. I mean, this is going to be, and I mean, Trump is not somebody to mess with when it comes to what the Constitution lays out as his right, which is broad powers to deal with immigration, broad powers to deal with national security, and they're messing with him. And the reason let's be honest here, the reason they're messing with him is because, I mean, if Obama, clearly the Ninth Circuit, nobody was filing lawsuits when Obama paused immigration for those coming from Iraq in 2011. Nobody made a plea. I mean, this is entirely political. This is not a judicial issue. This is a political issue. It certainly is. And I heard Elizabeth Warren, speaking of her, and then we're going to get speaking of Elizabeth Warren, who was silenced by the Senate when she was reading from Coretta Scott King's letters, and that's horrible. They shut it down. Listen, she was saying vile things about Senator Jeff Sessions, regardless of its source. It's not allowed. And so, as I heard on morning television today, Liawatha was told to sit down. Liawatha.
That's very good. Steve, I got to tell you, it is actually my birthday today, and I was going to get mad at you for mentioning Elizabeth Warren on my birthday. That should happen to no one. No one should have to think of Liawatha on their birthday.
But then you got the Liawatha line. You're like, that's worth it. I can live with it.
Now you've sort of made my day.
All right. So you came here to actually talk about this ridiculous draconian tax on sugar in Philadelphia. You're going to give us an update. We got about 3 minutes. So what's going on with the sugary drink tax that's also applied to Diet Colas too? Because let's be honest, anyhow. Well, what's going on with it?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's a penny and a half, it's cent and a half on every ounce. So, I mean, Philadelphians are really in sticker shock. We're talking, I mean, you buy a 6-pack of beer's not taxed, by the way, but you can get fat on beer, but Diet Coke.
Why do you think they call it a Milwaukee? We always called it the Milwaukee tumor. You think about that?
Yeah. Well, Diet Coke though is the thing that's making you fat, not all the carbs you're drinking. I mean, and I don't think you should.
I got a question for you. A serious question. Amazon delivers everything under the sun. Do they deliver, Coke and Pepsi?
They do not. Well, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know.
They might.
But honestly, you point out something exactly what the problem with these taxes are. They are regressive. Okay, there are an awful lot of people who live under the poverty line who simply cannot go online and purchase something from Amazon, and they also can't leave the city limits, unlike people who work in the city and live in the suburbs. So it's really harming the poor. The poor spend a higher percentage on groceries, food, and beverage. So again, who you're taxing are the very people who don't need a new tax. It's incredibly cruel. And I also want to point out, these things are ineffective.
Well, let's look at something here.
To move the needle on obesity.
We've talked about food deserts, inner cities where there are no supermarkets and so forth. And they have, the little market that sells, a little bit.
Bodega.
Whatever. And they sell a little bit, and they sell sodas. Well, the kid goes down there, he's got $1 or $2 or whatever, and now he doesn't have enough because you just taxed him out of his Coke, out of his, and he lives in the poor part of town. Come on.
Yeah, I know we don't have much time, but I also want to say this. When you are poor, when you live under or at the poverty line, and I know Mayor Kenny, okay, he's got a lot of money, okay, so he doesn't have to worry about this. But there are very few luxuries in your life. You can't play golf, you can't go on vacations, you can't get your hair done, you can't get your nails done, but you can afford a soda, okay? You generally can. And so that is, to some degree, we can't forget the psychology of this. Part of the reason that sometimes poor people, we don't understand their eating habits. Maybe they don't eat great because they have so few luxuries in their life, but they can afford a $2 soda. So we need to really cut it out. Stop managing people. Stop telling them how to live. It's sickening. It's really paternalistic.
By the way, I've just confirmed. Yes, you can buy Coke and Pepsi and those sorts of things on Amazon.
Nice.
So you can have it delivered right to your doorstep. But are these people in the poor neighborhoods going to have that opportunity? No. but the people that have a little bit of money in an Amazon account can go there, get it delivered without the tax, I believe, probably right to their doorstep. Boom. And the tax is sidestepped, and the idiots in Philly look like that. Julie Gunlock, happy birthday.
Why, thank you. This is a nice way to start the day.
There you go. Don't forget the term of the day, Liawatha. It is the Steve Gruber Show. Have a good one. We'll talk soon. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show, American values with Midwestern common sense.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Black Betty had a child, bam-a-lam. The damn thing gone wild. Bam-a-lam, she said a word, not a mind. Bam-a-lam, the damn thing gone blind. Bam-a-lam, I said, oh, Black Betty,
all right.
Bam-a-lam.
It's 33 after. On a Wednesday, the 8th of February. Glad you're with us today. You can find out more at stevegruber.com. Be safe, by the way. Get your home tested for radon. Radon at michigan.gov, a place to go to check it out. Or call 1-800-RADON-GAS. You can get a kit to check your house. Number 2 cause of lung cancer. Don't be susceptible. There you go. House Speaker Paul Ryan saying that Republican lawmakers will try to push through tax reform and infrastructure bills, 2 key policies for investors. That'll come in the spring after focusing on health care, they say. Stephen Hayes, the chairman of fairtax.org, here to discuss those proposals and much more. Stephen, welcome back.
Steve, great to be back with you. Thank you so much.
Glad to have you here. All right, so there's a lot of other things going on you may have noticed in Washington, but every now and then we hear about the economy. There's 1 or 2 things going on, nothing serious, nothing to see here. But while they're paying attention to who can come to the country legally, and by the way, I think maybe this I should ask you about as well. A proposal put forth by Senator Tom Cotton would cut in half the number of green cards allowed beginning next year, be cut by 40%. It would be by 50% over a couple of years, cutting from 1 million to just 500,000 green cards annually. And I'm wondering what kind of impact that would have. But let's start with what you're hearing in the economy and what you like and what you're concerned about.
Well, what I'm hearing, and I was literally I went into the belly of the beast on Monday and Tuesday for meetings to get a better idea. I was in Washington D.C. and what I'm hearing is there's a lot of absolute confusion because these guys are so disgruntled by the fact that Trump has come in and he's not doing things the quote right in quote way.
Oh, so he's not doing things the way they've always been done. He's doing them differently, so therefore they're upset.
They are, yes, and there are several members that I met with who are actually big supporters of the fair tax, and they're, I believe, sincere supporters because they've taken some slings and arrows in support of it. And I feel like, what they're telling me is probably true. And they're saying, look, until things settle down, the reason that Ryan put off the whole idea of tax reform until the summer, even though they had initially, he and Trump had gotten up there and said the first 100 days, was that there's just too many things going on. There's too much confusion.
Well, it's not going to settle down for 4 years, so they better buck up because it's clear that the American press and the foreign press, too, of the BBC and others are going to continue to attack Trump for the next 4 years. It doesn't matter if he says it's lunchtime, it's called controversial, and that's going to be part and parcel for what we're doing going forward. So they better get it together and knuckle down.
But Steve, I think that's a real opportunity for things to actually change because they have gone on so long. In a you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. I mean, it's very, very difficult to sit there and watch people who delight in making things. And I'm not talking just about taxes. I'm talking about lots of areas who like to make things very complicated, and they do these things. Well, we're going to do this, and they suddenly get everybody who's against it that comes in and pays a lot of money to lobbyists. And then when they leave the employee of Congress or they leave as a member, they go get a big job in a lobbying firm.
Right.
And it's just an endless circle.
And that's not going to happen now.
The only people winning are the people there.
Right, but that's not going to happen now because one of the executive orders signed by President Trump said you can't have a job as a lobbyist for 5 years, and you can't have a lobbyist job for a foreign country ever if you work in this administration. But let me ask you this. Yes, things are being done differently, and they're going to make it as complicated as possible. And people like Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer are going to try to lay down in front of the train. But you know what? The train's going to roll on, because I'm going to ask you this. Stephen Hayes, do you believe it's possible that Donald Trump might have access to some of the brightest minds in the world when it comes to lawyers and dealing with this stuff? He may have a rocky start here and there, but his learning curve is fast, and he likes to win, and I believe he has the ability to get the best people in the world to work through these legal matters. Do you believe that to be possible?
No, I totally agree. Not only that, but I think that, like this whole thing, this kerfuffle that came up on immigration, if Jeff Sessions had been in office, in other words, been sworn in like he should have been, then very likely it would have been handled a little bit differently, and it would have not created the uproar it did. Because
no, it was a rookie mistake. It was a rookie mistake, and Jeff Sessions wasn't. He'll be there today. I believe Jeff Sessions will be sworn in today. Now that Betsy DeVos is through, which they needed his vote for that, now they go through with Jeff Sessions, and he goes through. And finally, this has taken the longest of any cabinet in history that I can find in reading. The obstructionists, the Democrats who complain about Republicans being obstructionists, are setting an all-new low for what they can do here. They really are. I mean, they really are, based on nothing more than ideology.
But I'm laughing because it's true that they're doing this. It's like the whole thing of some of the Republican ideas, were in the last administration. They did some things they probably shouldn't have done. Well, the Democrats have tripled that. They've come back and they've said, we're not going to go for anything. We're not going to allow anything good to happen because we believe this is, bad if anything good happens, because look at the threat good things mean for the power structure that's lasted there for 100 years. Look at the threat that if things start to improve and if the communities in the inner city start to improve, to the whole power base that's existed.
Well, it's stripping them down.
They're not going to let that go easily.
Well, they may not let it go easily, but it's already going. That's the thing. And, the other thing that I find humorous are the Democrats that are complaining about Donald Trump's use of executive orders. Now, one of the things that I said that concerns me as a voter, as a citizen, is if Donald Trump came in and used the executive orders in a way that exceeded Barack Obama's. But all he's doing with his executive orders, for example, the border wall, voted into law in 2006, the temporary ban from 7 nations, that was put in place in 2015 by Obama. All of these things he's doing are things that he's addressing previous laws for the most part. Now, going forward, he needs to do it right, which means go through Congress, create laws that are signed by the president that are more permanent, if you will.
Yes.
So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Not only more permanent, but the way they should be done. We should not have law by fiat, by just having declarations issued. Whether we agree with them or not, it's much better to have them to be written into a law. But one of the things that's exciting to me is with all this uproar, we're finding who the true opponents of genuine tax reform are, and we're finding that it's a lot of the people who are surprising and some who are not. But it's like the Koch brothers came out against border tax adjustability. Well, that explains to me why they have been reluctant, and not reluctant, but have been unwilling to get behind the fair tax, which is a national retail sales tax, as you know, that is by definition border adjustable, meaning that imports are no longer favored because all products that are sold in the U.S. are taxed. Well, the Koch brothers, along with the retail, which we already knew, have come out against that.
Sure.
And there are lots and lots of people that talk about tax reform,
but when it gets down to it, they get
for somebody else, not for them.
Right. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on it because as these things go forward, there's a lot more coming. Obviously, we're only 3 weeks into the first 100 days, and we have to leave it there. Stephen Hayes from fairtax.org. But I'm sure you and I will have a lot to talk about as we roll through it all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Back in a moment on The Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Life is so strange when it's changing, yes indeed. Well, I've seen the hard times and the pressure's been on me. But I keep on working like a
Give them back. All right. Wednesday here on the Steve Gruber Show. This part of the program brought to you by DTE. DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy, know your own power. Glad to have you with us today on this Wednesday. If you'd like to join the conversation, you're encouraged to do so. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. And Paul Ryan says that tax reform won't come until at least spring. And we'll see how far they get, at that point. It's a significant part of what the president promised. A significant part of what the president promised in the election. And so we're going to see where that goes, because obviously it was a big part of his campaign, a big part of everything he was doing. Check, there it is. And, we don't want him to wait a year to do tax reform, obviously. We'd like to see something started in the first 100 days to see where that's headed. Meanwhile, we're waiting for that report and that decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. My next guest, Congressman John Moolenaar, here from Michigan's 4th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be with you this morning.
It is an interesting time to be in Washington, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Colorful time. So maybe you could help a couple of your colleagues. Maybe you could explain to Maxine Waters that Vladimir Putin is not invading Korea, and let Nancy Pelosi know the president's name is Trump, not Bush. I'm just trying to help here as I'm a little concerned about your colleagues because I'm not sure which planet they're living on. Sorry.
Well, it is an exciting time, and I'm excited that the president is on the job, getting things done, and we're facing opposition from the Democrats. They're trying to filibuster all the nominees for the different positions in the administration, and of course we have the Supreme Court coming up, but we're going to focus like a laser on getting the work done that we said we would do when we campaigned and talked to the American people.
Yeah, they're trying to filibuster and block everything with the support and the help of the national media, it seems, plus the BBC and some foreign media as well. You look at the way some of these stories are covered, and, for a guy who used to work at NBC, I look at that, it gives me a headache going, that is not an appropriate way to cover the story, but that's what you're up against. You guys, it's no secret what you're dealing with. So when you look at some of the things that are coming up, whether it's immigration or health care or tax reform, what do you see are the priorities for you when you focus on the agenda as we look forward?
Well, it's important that we have a healthcare system that works for people, that patients have the main opportunity to choose their doctor, to choose the health plan that best fits their needs, and one that's sustainable in the future. Obamacare is failing. It's collapsing under its own weight. It's not sustainable. State governments are having trouble finding the resources, and so we need a better plan, and that's something we're working on in Congress right now, so that's a huge priority. Tax reform that brings resources back to America. A lot of corporations are keeping money offshore rather than investing, basically because of our tax code. It penalizes businesses for investing in America. We need to turn that around, so that's another huge priority. Of course, regulatory relief. The Obama administration passed so many regulations. They promulgated regulations. They didn't go through Congress.
Well, right, they didn't pass them. They got dumped on us. Yeah, they got dumped on us. And and I was watching something here. Now, the deal is now, for every new regulation, 2 have to go, Congressman. And when a similar thing was done in the UK, they had reduced regulations by 40% in something like the first year. I mean, that's impressive. And let's be honest, in 1960, just before I was born, about 5% of the people in Michigan had to have a license to go to work. It's almost half now. We're putting all these impediments and roadblocks and things in front of people. All they want to do is go to work. Trust me, I don't think a florist needs a license, all right? If their flowers aren't cut right, people will buy them from someplace else. Let the market do what it's supposed to do. Doctors, lawyers, architects, yes, they should be licensed. But a lot of folks are being licensed and taxed, and and all this regulation blocking people from going to work. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely, and it's hurting our economy. It's hurting opportunities for people to find jobs. It's, in places, even nonprofit organizations. When it came to this overtime rule, I would talk to nonprofit organizations that were helping the poor that would tell me that this overtime rule would cost them up to $500,000. Now, for a nonprofit organization who, exists because they're able to raise funds and people contribute to serve the poor, that's crazy.
Well, that is crazy. But on the other side of that, we all know people that are getting paid $30,000 a year in salary, quote unquote, that are being told to work 55 hours a week.
Right.
So how do you balance that out?
Well, and that's why there needs to be a thoughtful review process to look at it and take time and really take a thoughtful approach on these kinds of things. The Obama administration was famous for putting their political agenda through by executive order, which wasn't the product of asking input from stakeholders and going through the legislative process, but rather just by fiat. And that's been the problem, and that's what we're working hard to reverse.
Well, and hopefully a lot of things that we can turn back and get on what I like to call common sense footing, and that's what I'd like to see. And Congressman, I appreciate you being here. I look forward to you being here a little bit more often than you have in the past. Congressman John Moolenaar from Michigan's 4th Congressional District. Another colorful day in Washington. Just remember, duck often and smile often as well, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman John Moolenaar here on the Steve Gruber Show from Michigan's 4th. It's a good time to be working, I'd guess. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Wednesday, 6 minutes after. Glad you're with us today. Brought to you in part by Like Law. Trusted, confident, integrity, and experience. LYKE, Like Law. Look them up. I want to thank all of the folks that are partners with us here on the program, be it DTE or Mesa or Like Law. All of the folks that make this possible, including the advertisers right there on your local affiliates. Make sure you support those folks that are helping this program come to you every day. We've got some new affiliates we'll be announcing here in the next couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks after that, some more. So I appreciate the support as the show continues to grow because of people just like you. Now, topping the agenda today, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, we are waiting for a decision on President Trump's executive action that temporarily halted refugees and immigrants from 7 nations. It has always been the prerogative of the President of the United States to restrict immigrants or refugees or any class of people that he felt could potentially be a threat to the United States. Of course, this list goes back to 2015 and President Barack Obama. President Trump's executive order simply enforcing that had been put into place by the previous administration. But, of course, the Democrats go wild and claim that somehow Donald Trump is targeting Muslims and so on and so forth. Well, if he is, then so is Barack Obama. They don't believe that, of course, because it's a blatant double standard carried out not only by the Democrats, but by their friends in the media. Meantime, Senator Elizabeth Warren has been formally silenced, thankfully, by her Republican colleagues during a debate for Senator Jeff Sessions and his confirmation hearings to be the Attorney General. That will happen today, by the way. He will be confirmed. But Miss Warren had been taking shots at Jeff Sessions using a 1986 letter by Coretta Scott King, and now it's, of course, it's the position of the media. Well, we've silenced Coretta Scott King in the U.S. Senate. No, that's not it at all. She was taking shots at Jeff Sessions, saying he was, not friendly to the races and so forth, even though he shut down the Ku Klux Klan in Alabama, even though he sentenced the leader of the Ku Klux Klan to death and played a role in that case and followed it through. Don't let that stop your vitriol. Also, yesterday, as you probably know by now, Betsy DeVos confirmed as education secretary with a historic vote by Vice President Mike Pence, who made that possible. First time that's ever happened. Meanwhile, Yemen will no longer allow the United States to run special operations and ground missions in that country. This comes after that raid last week where some civilians were killed along with many al-Qaeda leaders and one Navy SEAL. And also, the Army has approved the Dakota Access Pipeline. Tuesday's decision paving the way for the completion of the 1,172-mile project drew outrage from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, even though the pipeline doesn't go across their tribal land. It's been diverted 91 times to make sure they are appeased. It has nothing to do with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe at this point. It has to do simply with left-wing politics. On the hotline, Steve is in Lansing checking in, talking about Betsy DeVos. Steve, welcome to the program.
Good morning. If I was the MEA, as in Michigan Education Association, I would be ashamed if I ever opened my mouth. When you look at the fact that Michigan was like number 3 in the country for level of education 40 years ago, and today we are someplace 6th from the bottom. Nationally, with the NEA, we rank someplace 19th in the world, and yet we continue to dump more money into this than any other country in the world. There is something wrong with that picture.
There's no question.
The NEA should be ashamed, and what we're seeing is they are shameless. It's all about control and brainwashing our kids.
Well, you hit that nail squarely on the head. Steve, thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. It is a lot about politics. He's right. We spend more per student. The average per student nationwide, something like $13,000 or something overall. It's far more than any other nation spends on education, and yet somehow we get our return on investment is weak, to say the least. New Orleans got drilled with tornadoes, state of emergency there, and some other things going on. But I want to focus on this, and I don't mean to frighten you on a Wednesday. But she's back. She's back. Hillary Clinton is back, declaring the future is female. Did you have that? All right, well, I guess we don't have that. But she's back, declaring the future is female, which is weird, considering that's a throwback to the 1970s. It's a throwback to the 1970s, that whole saying. And she put out this video, a part of Makers. The future is female. What it was in the 1970s was something put out by lesbian folk singer Alex Dobkin, who called herself a lesbian separatist. And so she was a feminist declaration of independence is what it was. Here's Hillary's new video just released yesterday. Go.
I'm proud to be a maker and to support Maker's mission to share women's stories and celebrate women's vital roles in the past, present, and future of our country. Despite all the challenges we face, I remain convinced that, yes, the future is female. Just look at the amazing energy we saw last month as women organized a march that galvanized millions of people all over our country and across the world. Now more than ever, we need to stay focused on the theme of this year's conference, Be Bold. We need strong women to step up and speak out.
Enough. I mean, that's your future right there. That's your future. And if the future is female, maybe part of that future will be Maxine Waters of California's 43rd Congressional District, who yesterday decried Donald Trump, said it's time that we impeach him. We need to look at that because of the things that he's doing and the places he's doing it. Take a listen to Maxine Waters. It's very special. Maxine Waters.
Whether he's talking about his relationship to Putin and the Kremlin, and knowing that they have hacked our DCCC and DNC, and knowing that he is responsible for supplying the bombs that killed innocent children and families in Aleppo. And the fact that he is Aleppo, wrapping his arms around Putin while Putin is continuing to advance.
Where's he going?
Korea.
Yeah. That's it.
He is
Putin's going to
leading
Korea.
himself into that kind of position where folks will begin to ask, what are we going to...
All right, because I want to get to the next thing with Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's fighting back, too, against the president. She just doesn't seem to know which one. Go with Nancy Pelosi.
While it's only a couple of weeks since the inauguration, there's complete evidence, we've seen nothing that we can work, but I can work with President Bush on, and I'm disappointed because I thought that there might be some interest because of what...
She apparently thinks that President Bush is still in charge. Yes, Maxine Waters thinks that the Russians are invading Korea, and Nancy Pelosi thinks that George Bush is president. Thankfully, the Democrats have a great team in their leadership positions. Back in a moment.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, real quick to the hotline. Jackie is checking in Kalamazoo today. Jackie, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Steve. Thank you. I just wanted to say I was very happy to see DeVos sworn in, and I was incredibly disappointed by Randy Weingarten's comments last week about both our state and our educational system. I think DeVos was hindered by Common Core, which frankly in a lot of our neck of the woods is not Common nor Core. And I think there needs to be more effort with hands-on education and the ability for our children to go where they need to go to get that.
Well done, Jackie. Well spoken. Great points, and thank you for calling in. I appreciate the input. Look forward to having you call in the future. That hotline number is 888-900-9966. But right now, I've got to get to my next guest, Matt Briggs, the guy who has degrees from 117 different institutions around the country or something like that. Matt, welcome back.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, in math, physics, PhD in mathematical statistics, the latter two from Cornell. Well-doctored, well-lettered, and all of those happy things. Dr. John Bates was one of the leading scientists of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, and he has just released a report and disclosed the manipulation of data behind the so-called Pausebuster paper, the biggest scientific scandal since ClimateGate in 2009. It's the second time we've had proof, red-handed proof, that these alleged climate scientists are manipulating and cheating with the data to make global warming look bigger than it really is. Matt, what do you say?
Well, even Bates himself doesn't say that there was any intentional fraud, or at least nobody knows.
Well, hold on now. He said,
fraud.
Now, hold on. He said they took good data away.
What he does say is that they bypassed usual channels. There's all kinds of ways of handling these data that they were supposed to have done.
But Matt, hold on, because the thing I'm focused on, he said they replaced reliable data from buoys to put in unreliable data from ships. That to me sounds like fraud.
There's another explanation. Well, I'm not saying it wasn't fraud. I'm saying that we don't know at this point. It could very well be, but there's another perfectly logical explanation, too. These guys, when they do this manipulation of this data, and the manipulation is absolutely true, there's no question about that. Nobody disputes the manipulation. But they're expecting to find in the data an increase in temperature. And so what they do is they say the increase must be there. All these models, the theory predicts it. And here's data that shows the increase is not happening. But if we use this other data over here and we manipulate it a certain way, all of a sudden the warming is there. So let's go with this new data, this suspect data, and the manipulations, because that confirms our preconceptions. So I think it's much more likely a case of confirmation bias, or at least that's a live possibility. And even Bates himself, in a post that he wrote on Judy Curry's site, she's another big climate skeptic like myself, that's his dominant interpretation at this point. He's not claiming, because no one knows.
He doesn't have to claim it.
Whether anybody,
hold on.
Did this intentionally.
Come on. You don't believe that, and neither do I. I mean, you're clearly probably the smartest guy I talk to on a regular basis on this program based on your accomplishments. This isn't accidental. This is over many years. These are people that get their funding almost exclusively from government. The government has a hoped-for outcome. In order to keep getting your funding, those outcomes need to be somewhere in that ballpark or your money dries up. Come on. It's bought and paid for research.
It's not only that. These manipulations occur on a fairly regular basis. This is not the first time. This paper is not the only time these corrections, as they call them, happen on a continuous basis. And they need to, and I could explain that reason why. But it's funny the way they happen. It's always the case that data from historic times, older data, is suddenly discovered to have actually been colder than we previously thought. And data from the more recent times is always suddenly discovered to be warmer than we previously thought.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that readings were taken...
Like the temperature is increasing.
In the so-called Western world, if you will, France, England, the developed parts of the United States on the East Coast 100 or 200 years ago, do you believe that the readings that were taken by people were accurate, by scientists back then were accurate?
This is the point. The point you're making is it. This is it. Whether there's fraud or confirmation bias or anything, it's just we're getting all wrapped up in this thing. Even if you accept that pause buster paper as absolutely above board, everybody did exactly the right thing. Here's what they found. They found from 1950 to 1999, they said the temperature had increased 0.113 degrees centigrade. And that all of a sudden, from 2000 to 2014, it went up by 0.116 degrees. So we're talking 3/1,000ths of a degree in temperature. And we're saying we could measure the temperature all over the Earth from these ships at sea and these weird thermometers and in parking lots and everything to the accuracy of 3/1,000ths of a degree.
Well, if we round up, if I take your two numbers here, though, and add them together and say worst case scenario, if my math is right, and it is, then the temperature's gone up 0.3 of a degree Celsius during that entire time frame.
This is per decade.
I understand.
This is per decade, so it's much less scary than we'd even think. It's just not. The whole thing is ridiculous. We can't, just as you were saying, we take these ships. This is the part of the finagling that Bates is accusing them of doing. These ships traverse the oceans. The oceans are somewhat inconstant in their temperatures. They suck up the water from the ocean, and then they measure the temperature of that water. Well, in doing so, ships are, of course, much warmer than the oceans around them. All the machinery and the power plants and everything sort of guarantee this.
But you also have temperature breaks out there.
Temperature is always much warmer, so they're using this in preference to actual buoy data, where the buoys just sort of sit and float around. So why do that? It's either fraud, intentional, or it's because this is what they thought they expected.
They want an intended outcome. It's an outcome. With it, and it's an intended outcome. It's predisposed as to where they're going to get. Matt, never enough time with you. We could talk for an hour, and I think I want to have you back soon because I want to continue this conversation about where we're really going and everything else. But Matt Briggs, always appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Entirely my pleasure. Thank you.
Back in a moment on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
It's 33 after the hour. I'm glad to have you on board. It's the Steve Gruber Show, and the hotline number is 888-900-9966. Glad to have you in the conversation. Judy joining us from Ann Arbor, 1600 Wham territory down there. Judy, thanks for listening. What's on your mind?
Well, just our education system, seeing kids being taught when they're little, write whatever you want, don't worry how you spell, looking at high school history books and saying there's nothing. Some of my high school students didn't even know who Adolf Hitler is, but they know who Eugene Debs is, who was founder of the Socialist Party. Finding out that our core education system is funded by the Saudi Arabians. I mean, hello.
Well, a lot of things to be concerned with, Judy, no question about that. So we're going to see if Betsy DeVos, Michigan's own, can make a difference there with that historic vote yesterday.
Yeah, I'm seeing high school kids run around like chickens with their heads cut off, just trying to make it through classes that are incredibly hard and have lots and lots of work. It's just,
That'd be nice. A Lots of smartphones and lots of dumb people, Judy. That's the way the world works these days. Thanks for checking in. Greatly appreciate it. My next guest, Scottie Nell Hughes, one of the strong supporters of Donald Trump's spokesman for freedomvine.com as well. Scottie Nell Hughes, welcome back to the program.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. And I loved your caller, what she brought up right there, because that's exactly why I think yesterday the second most important cabinet position, second only to the Department of Defense, was put into place. And I am very optimistic about what Betsy, and you probably know her better than I do, but looking at her record, more importantly, what she says she is going to do, makes me very excited for my child. And I'm going to be selfish. For my child, my children, I wanted Betsy to be put in, but also for the future, because this is truly going to be a hard job to stop the progressive agenda that has been put in. And Betsy's got a hard task in front of her, and I think she's going to be able to handle it.
Scottie, I think you're right about that. So I'm going to give a homework assignment to everybody, you included, if you should take me up on this. I want people to go back and look up on YouTube the Milton Friedman series done by PBS, I think in the late 1970s, early 80s. He talks about vouchers and schools of choice and how they are the true ticket out of poverty for anybody, including black Americans and poor white Americans. It doesn't matter. Schools of choice and vouchers are the two things that can improve the school, because he said if parents have the choice and they have some money in their pocket solely for getting their kids into better schools, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go to better schools, and the schools that are lagging behind are going to get their act together and become better schools, and we will teach our kids. And Betsy DeVos is a champion of those ideas.
Absolutely. And so it was really, who the American people, our American children, truly won yesterday. But the bureaucratic union thugs, and these are not our teachers, by the way. Our teachers have been losing underneath this current system. Common Core, the majority of teachers despise it. Because when you go into teaching, I really do believe teachers have the heart, if they decide to go down that, to help children. And they know this curriculum that is teaching them to the test. And that's what was interesting, what your caller brought up. There's two facets to Common Core that go greatly against each other. On one hand, they're teaching students to take a test and do really good on the test. But on the other hand, it's how you feel about your answer, how you feel
I love
about that math problem.
But it's not about, but see, math doesn't have feelings. Math is math, 2 + 2, but I feel it should be 5 if 2 + 2 is, it's 4, Scottie, and I appreciate it. And I also hear something else. History in, say, Louisiana. You might teach about the War of 1812 and Andrew Jackson. In Michigan, you might teach about some of the native Indian tribes like the Chippewa and other indigenous. The point is, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to education. There are local issues and local concerns and local character and local heritage. These things should all be taken into account, and that's why I don't like Common Core, because, yes, mathematics is mathematics, but a lot of things don't fit one size fits all. Yes or no?
Absolutely, and that's the one thing. When I have a third and a fourth grader. When both of my children know Common Core and know that it's a bad thing, not because of what they've overheard me talking about, but because what they see in the classroom and their textbooks say Common Core. We played a Stump the Chump game this past fall, where my son with fourth grade would bring home his history book, and my husband's a history major. I'm a history buff, and we go, okay, which fact is wrong today? And every page, we would find this version of revisionist history where they wanted to eradicate. In fact, I saw recently a legislator over in California wanted it put in the history books that Donald Trump was a fraudulent election because the Russians were involved.
Yeah, actually,
he wants California textbooks rewritten. That's when you know our system is corrupt.
Yes, Tucker Carlson filleted him last night. I enjoy watching Tucker smirk and destroy people, which he did with that particular individual last night. The things that concern me, there was a teacher here not far from where I'm sitting who has now been promoted to superintendent of that district that a few years ago in her class in junior high school was teaching that Abraham Lincoln was actually a Democrat, not a Republican. He's actually a Democrat. And she taught students that and got away with it, for Lord's sake, Scottie. The train is out of control.
Well, do you blame her? I mean, look at what Hillary Clinton did at the DNC. Look at the speeches. If you watch the DNC, you would think Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat. You would think all of the issues that are anything good that happened to America were the Democrats, when it's the exact opposite looking at history. And I think that's why yesterday was so important for us. And like I said, what really scared me was how much they were vehemently against her. However, considering the joke that I viewed a few hours last night and what the headlines are this morning concerning Liz Warren and her wanting to speak, and the fact that they can't even see, and I'm sorry, it's politically incorrect, and I'm going to go, that Pocahontas, who lied to get into office, is only doing this right now to everything she does as a PR stunt
Let me
for
help
the
you out.
2020 bid.
Let me help you out. We're going with Liawatha today.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that on morning television today. I laughed out loud, and I've been using it ever since. Liawatha is our new vernacular for Miss Warren, and I'm glad she gets to sit there. Of course, Maxine Waters thinks that Vladimir Putin is invading Korea, and Nancy Pelosi apparently thinks that George Bush is still president. What the hell's going on with the Democrats, Scotty? They seem to be out of control.
Well, and that's what kills me about it, because it did not kill me. But instead of in 2008 when we lost, you remember this, Steve, we looked at ourselves. We said, what is wrong with us? Why are we out of touch with the American people? The Democrats have become even more rabid in their loss. And with everything, and by the way, they haven't won yet. The only thing that they have won has been the stay on the temporary ban. And if you listen to the 9th Circuit Court arguments last night, it's pretty easy to say they have a very weak argument. So I actually, for once, am kind of optimistic. That
I'm not optimistic at all, because, and here's my concern. I will tell you exactly what my concern is, that the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals keeps the TRO in place, meaning they're blocking President Trump from protecting America, which has been the prerogative of every president, I believe, ever. And so what you end up with is the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals becoming the most powerful court in America, because if this follows suit, then the next time Donald Trump does something, some rogue judge somewhere in Alaska or Oregon or Washington says, we can't do that, and puts a block, and the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals upholds it as long as the Supreme Court is at 4-4. That temporarily makes the 9th Circuit the most powerful court in America, and that is dangerous.
Absolutely, and this is the one thing where I think this administration, I think, has done amazing things. They've done some great things, despite what you hear as the headlines. This is the one part that they're lacking, is the strategy, where liberals, they went immediately to think 1-2 steps ahead. I mean, it's no secret why this landed in Washington and the 9th Circuit Court. They had this plan, and you're right, they'll continue to have this plan on all other issues going forward.
Scottie, Nell, Hughes, always a great conversation, and I appreciate you coming here and shedding light on it. Come back soon.
Anytime you need me, Steve.
There you have it. Scottie Nell Hughes here, pretty much an insider with the Trump White House. We appreciate her insight here on the program. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I'll be right back.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All right, headed for the backstretch, so I'm punching the gas and letting the wind blow through my hair. It's kind of the way I feel about it. My next guest is Dr. John Wycoff, because he wants to make sure the wind's blowing through your hair for years to come, so he wants to look out for you. He's a great partner of the program, and I encourage you to support all of the folks that you hear here that are partners of the program that make it possible to be here every day, like my good friend, Dr. John Wycoff. Doctor, welcome back.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning.
Good morning. I understand you're having a get-together that's kind of a big deal.
Well, we try to do some events to help people get engaged and excited about their health. So we offer periodic free seminars. We have a great one tonight, a great topic for the new year. Barriers to losing weight, talking about our HCG weight loss program and our Healthy Transformation program. I know you know a lot about Healthy Transformation. I know that's helped you in the past. It's a great program. And also we're going to showcase our Verju body contouring laser. This is one of the few lasers in Michigan to help you painlessly reduce inches and do some great body contouring. Lose up to 4 inches in just 2 weeks. So it's a pretty amazing talk.
All right. So, I mean, these are things. And so when do you have these events? How often? And for people that live too far away and they want to know about these things, how do they get involved? How do they get connected?
Well, that's a great point. Now, tonight's seminar, Wednesday, February 8th, 6 to 8 p.m., it's free of charge, open to the public. All are invited. Just get to the office on Michigan Avenue in East Lansing. We're going to kick off promptly at 6 o'clock. If anyone wants more information, go to our website at wycoffwellness.com, and you'll see an event section. And we typically have seminars that are free and open to the public about once a month. So we've got a great seminar in March and April. They'll be on the website. But the one tonight, a great topic, one that I know interests a lot of your listeners. barriers to losing weight. Why can't I lose weight? We'll talk specifically about the barriers. We'll talk about our programs. We'll talk about the Verju body contouring laser. And we're going to give away two laser packages and two of our weight loss programs, almost $5,000 in prizes to four of our lucky attendees tonight.
Well, there you go. And for people that just want the best supplements and so forth because they look after their health and maybe they don't like what they get off the supermarket shelf, they want something different, something they consider pure, if you will. They can get online and get all those supplements from you as well, correct?
You are exactly right. At wycoffwellness.com, anyone can purchase supplements online or in store. You do not have to be a patient at Wycoff Wellness to access our in-store store or our online store. And really, you're right. Get high-quality supplements. We partner with a company called Metagenics. You're not going to find Metagenics at CVS or at GNC. They only partner with physicians who are committed to providing quality products, some of the best products you're going to find, at really about the same cost as some of your big box stores.
There you go. You can find it all at wycoffwellness.com. That seminars tonight in East Lansing from 6 until 8. You can find out more about that as well at wycoffwellness.com. As always, Dr. John Wycoff, thank you for the time. Appreciate it, and appreciate you being a partner.
Have a great day. Thank you.
There you have it. Dr. John Wycoff, everybody. And again, Wycoff, that's WYCOFF, wycoffwellness.com. All right, so just a few minutes left here. If you'd like to join the conversation, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Like to have you on board if you'd like to join the conversation as far as Betsy DeVos and schools of choice or the confirmation hearings that are going on. Scott Pruitt getting a lot of pushback. He is the nominee for the Environmental Protection Agency. And Congressman Attorney General Scott Pruitt from Oklahoma, Senate likely to confirm him, but President Trump expected to sign the resolution of disapproval that Congress passed last week to void the so-called stream protection rule. As the new administration gears up, canceling the stream rule will likely be the first bill signed during the Trump presidency, the very first bill. The climate lobby that owned the EPA for the last 8 years is watching all of this transpire with dread, spreading that Caligula is about to capture the convent, or something like that. The thousands of workers and businesses punished by the EPA's regulatory overreach over the last many decades are welcoming with a big sigh of relief. A big sigh of relief. If you'd like to join the conversation, again, it's 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966 is the hotline, and glad to have you on board with us today. It's a stunning turnaround for the EPA, by the way. Ironically, the Sierra Club may have provided one answer recently when it announced a new plan to cut 28 gigawatts of coal-fired power. Such a massive dismantling of coal power could destroy 65,000 jobs right here in America. Of course, that's not how the Sierra Club announced this new plan, but that's what many people heard. For the folks out there, it's been an attack that's been going on for a long time on businesses, on you and I as Americans, and frankly, people wanted to stop. Jacob is checking in from WFNT Flint territory. Jacob, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve.
Glad to have you. What's on your mind?
Now, the whole Betsy DeVos thing, and I think was it Scottie that you were talking to?
Yep.
In our local school district here, there is an increasingly amount of very, very left-wing radical teachers. The downfall of that, they all post on Facebook all of their negative anti-Governor Snyder, anti-Trump, anti-DeVos. So what I've done is taken it upon myself. When I see those posts, I do a screenshot, I send it right to the superintendent and the principal and demand that my student not be taught by a person that's going to convey history that way.
And do they come back to you? Do they do any? Because here's what you should do, Jacob. You should go to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. You should follow that page and send me those screenshots when you see them, because we're not afraid to post up things from people out there that should be neutral and are not. Jacob, we're here to help. Greatly appreciate the phone call. It's the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. We've talked about teachers before. You may remember it hasn't been all that long. 52 after. We'll be right back. how the Democrats and Republicans are not playing nice. I know that's shocking to you, but I do find it, I find it good political theater that they tell Elizabeth Warren to sit down and keep still. That dramatic scene. Rule 19 pulled out because she was reading a 3-decade-old letter from Dr. Martin Luther King's widow that dated to Jeff Sessions' failed judicial nomination in 1986. King wrote that when acting as a federal prosecutor, Sessions used his power to, quote, chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens. And it put her in violation of the Senate rules for impugning the motives of Sessions, though the letter was written about 10 years before Sessions was elected to the Senate. She used it to attack him. They used it to attack him. So there you go. All right. So if you still want to get in, got room for one more call or two. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. A little warning to those out there that are politically motivated. And I don't care for which side, left, right, down the middle, but you get angry, you get fired up about politics, and you start writing things. Be careful. Be careful and make sure it's accurate and defensible. And here's why. A Maryland blogger has been ordered to pay a substantial sum to Melania Trump, the First Lady, as part of a settlement for a defamation lawsuit over an article containing unsubstantiated claims that the First Lady once worked as an escort. I posted an article on August 2nd, 2016 about Melania Trump that was replete with false and defamatory statements about her, said Webster Tarpley, a 71-year-old blogger. The statement released by Trump's attorneys in part, Trump's legal team declined to provide a settlement amount. Tarpley of Gaithersburg, Maryland, didn't respond to a request from the Washington Post for further comment, but his lawyer confirmed a settlement had in fact been reached. He further wrote, I acknowledge that these false statements were very harmful and hurtful to Mrs. Trump and her family, and therefore I sincerely apologize to Mrs. Trump, her son, her husband, and her parents for making these false statements. And those were all comments attributed to Tarpley in a statement released by Melania Trump, the Trump family attorneys. So say what you want, write what you want, make sure you're accurate. That's your journalism school advice of the week. Keep the faith, my friends. I'm Steve Gruber. We'll talk tomorrow.